want to go ahead and show you some of the mechanics of this Roam Baitcast reel right here. Now, as you can see on the side plate right here, you have your magnetic braking system. What that's going to do is it's going to brake the spool right here to make sure that you don't backlash too light of a lure that you have on it, and to make sure that you can get a good effective cast and good casting distance out of it. Now, as you can see, they start from free and 0 and then go all the way up to max and 12. You just take your fingers, adjust that knob, point it to whichever way you want it to go, however tight you want that braking tension to be. Moving on to the top of the reel, what we have here is this is called the spool. The spool right here is what's going to hold the line on the reel for you. Also on top of it, you have your thumb release button. What this is going to do is it's going to allow that spool to what they call free spool. Basically means it's going to spin in either direction depending on which way and how you hold it. Shifting sides here, this is the handle side. So obviously this right here is your reel handle. That's what you're going to use to actually crank in on those big fish. Also on this side, you have your drag system and your spool tension. Now your drag system here is what's going to limit the amount of force or decrease or increase the amount of force that it's going to take to pull line off that spool when the button is not engaged. Basically, if you're reeling in a bait that kind of pulls really hard, you might want to tighten it down so that way you're reeling in the bait effectively and it's not just turning the spool with no line coming in. Same thing if you're fighting big fish. Gonna make sure you want to have that drag cranked down a little bit more so you can bring those fish into the boat. Now moving on to the spool tension, your spool tension is what's going to be used to create actual tension on this spool. I know the name is self-explanatory, but I want to make sure you guys understand the mechanics of it. When you tighten this up, it actually puts physical pressure on that spool. Alternatively, these brakes right here are magnetic, which basically means they engage and disengage depending on how quick this spool is moving. This is constant physical pressure on the spool. Make sure that you tighten this up to whatever's comfortable for you. Same with the brakes for casting. Both of those are going to go hand in hand, making sure that you can get those long casts out of this. That is the mechanics of the Roam Baitcast reel. Now I'm going to show you guys how to cast with a bait casting reel. One of the most important things to do on a bait casting reel when you take it out of the pack is adjust your brakes on the side. The brakes on the side are going to put tension on that spool to make sure that you don't backlash that reel. If you backlash, it's not going to be fun for anybody. Now on this Roam Baitcast here, it goes from free to 0 all the way to max 12. Now I like to set mine somewhere in the middle. For some of you people who are a little bit new to bait cast, I'd recommend cranking them higher up to max than lower down to free. Once you get your tension set and brakes adjusted, you're going to want to let out about 10 to 12 inches of line from the tip of your rod. Obviously I have a crankbait tied on here, but this is going to work for any type of lure that you have tied on to the end of it. Now into the mechanics of the cast. Now you can cast it a couple different ways. You can go over top of your head, to the right side, to the left side, whatever you're comfortable with. There's no correct or wrong answer. Now one of the things to note is the correct place to release your thumb when you're casting. When you come back and you go, if you go too far forward, it's going to hit the water, cast is going to be really short, and you're going to get a backlash. Release the line too far back, it's going to go straight up into the air and come down in front of you, not really give you that long cast you're looking for. Now I personally like to let my cast go right about here. I found that this lets the rod load up, release enough to get me enough line out, and it's also low enough to the water that I don't get a bad backlash. Now another thing to note is when you're casting this, make sure you keep your thumb on that spool. It does have external brakes, but when it stops and hits the water, you're going to want to make sure that you match that spool with your thumb to make sure that it doesn't backlash on the end of your cast. Now if you do it all correctly, this is what it should look like. Just like that. And that's how you cast a Roam Baitcast.